Still with the Gambian roundup, let's check this out. The Gambian Independent Electoral Commission (IEC) has announced that the country's presidential election will take place on December 5th. The council and mayor polls are scheduled for May and June, respectively. A supplementary vote legislation will run from 1st April to 14 May 2026. Equally urge political and groups to meet registration requirement to reaffirm the IEC commitment to transparency and legal application. So those were the updates that we have. So very important article. The Gambian general election will be December 5th, 2026. And then of course the National Assembly election 2 will be 10 April 2027. And the mayoral election too will be on the same line, will be on June as well. So those are the latest from the IEC. And be reminded that you are listening to the daily podcast live coming through from our studios here at Talinding. Plumes of smoke could be seen raised over Gaza just hours after Israel and Hamas agreed to first phase of a ceasefire plan reportedly broke by US President Donald Trump. Footage from Al Jazeera shows Israel airstrike hitting parts of Gaza with explosion and think the smoke of filling the sky raised a fresh question about whether the ceasefire will actually take place. That is the latest happening right now at this occasion. Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko has announced that a second edition of the Invest in Senegal Forum held on October 7 and 8 in Dakar with the investment pledge totaling 13.2 trillion CFA francs, about 23.5 US dollar. Closing the forum on Wednesday, Sonko said 51 partnership agreement and rejected deals were signed with 11,772 participants from 70 countries in attendance as well. So those were the details that we have for you from the African roundup, and very soon we will link you with West Africa Democracy Radio for all that you need to know about our country. And then the Gambia Under 17 team recorded a 4-0 away win over Liberia with Ahmed Kanyi, Alhagie Fatty, and Aliou Drame and Maud Lum each finding the net. Kanyi was later named man of the match from his performance in the game. So Gambia opened their Under 17 tournament with a sounding 4-0 victory over Liberia. There's a good scoreline for the young baby Scorpions as well. So those were the stories that we have for you for this edition of the Daily Program. So what we do now, let's take a short break, and when we return, we take you to Dakar and link with West African Democracy Radio for all that we need to know about the continent. Welcome back to the Daily Podcast Live. Now let's begin with West African Democracy Radio for all that you didn't know about the continent.
Parvenez à recenser soigneusement les itinéraires and so meticulously documented the routes, movement, and composition of military convoys and supply transports intended to remain confidential for the sake of national defense. It systematically cataloged the military resources deployed to secure a specific convoy, gathering details on the number of personnel, vehicles, heavy weaponry, motorcycles, and other elements. The moto, etc. All individuals involved who have been apprehended will be brought before the faster prosecutor on charges of espionage and treason in accordance with the provisions of Article 311(4).
That is the Bottom Minister for Security, Mohammed Hussein. Still staying a while longer in the Central Sahel region, particularly in Mali, fuel scarcity is gradually looming in the country. Now, since Monday, gas stations in the country's capital, Bamako, have been overwhelmed by dozens of people trying to get a few liters to carry out their activities. This unprecedented situation comes as fuel supply routes have been cut off due to attacks on tanker trucks by the group for the support of Islam and Muslims JNIM. In the wake of this fuel shortage, the authorities are reassuring the public that measures have been taken to continue supplying the country with hydrocarbons. During a press briefing on Tuesday, Sumaila Jite, the Deputy Director of General of Trade, Consumer Affairs and Competition, highlighted some effort implemented by the government to control the situation.
What has been observed on the ground when we look at the overall findings from observation missions, we can safely say that there are sufficient quantities of fuel available to supply the country for a certain number of days, while waiting for the competent authorities to implement the necessary measures. I can also say that the DGCC and OMAP are institutions that will continue to monitor the situation and, above all, provide accurate information regardless of how the country's fuel supply situation evolves. This is an opportunity for me, on behalf of the highest authorities, to thank the population for their patience, patriotism, and especially their spirit of resilience in the face of a situation that I emphasize is always temporary and will soon be resolved through the actions taken by the authorities.
Sumaila Jite is the Deputy Director General of Trade, Consumer Affairs and Competition in Mali. Away from the Central Sahel region, but to Guinea, on some election-related issues, the General Directorate of Elections has established 2 commissions to oversee the sponsorships and campaign expenses for the presidential election scheduled for December 28, 2025. The announcement was made on Tuesday by the Directorate General of Elections head, Jenabu Toure Kamara. According to her, the first commission will handle the reception and validation of candidate endorsement, while the second commission will focus on financial oversight, setting both the mandatory deposit amount for candidates and the spending ceiling for the campaign period. According to Toure Kamara, these commissions will continue to will contribute to the smooth running of the campaign and elections. More details with Augustine Kony.
Speaking at the press briefing in Conakry, Jenabu Toure, the Director General of Elections, detailed the creation of 2 key commissions that will oversee critical aspects of the pre-electoral process. The first commission, she explained, will handle the reception and validation of candidate endorsements, a crucial mechanism designed to verify the authenticity and eligibility of presidential hopefuls. This process aims to ensure that only credible candidates with legitimate public backing are cleared to contest. The second commission will focus on financial oversight, setting both the mandatory deposit amount for candidates and the spending ceiling for the campaign period. The General Directorate of Elections says this measure is intended to promote fair competition and limit the influence of money in politics. In a memorandum addressed to political parties and independent aspirants, the Directorate urged all those intending to run to designate an official representative and submit a letter of solemn commitment affirming their compliance with electoral laws and ethical campaign standards. According to the directive, all required documents must be submitted to the DGE by Wednesday, marking a critical deadline in the run-up to the polls. These developments come just 2 weeks after transitional President General Mamadi Doumbouya officially set the election date, signaling a key step towards restoring civilian rule and concluding Guinea's political transition.
guest and qualified with that report.
More stories.
We also live on Facebook at WADR English Service, on YouTube at WADR News. Yes, a reminder of our top stories. Ghana's President Mahama pledges swift prosecution for financial misconduct by public officials to combat or curb corruption. Fuel scarcity looms in part of Mali due to rising attacks on supply tankers by fighters from JNIM. And the second edition of Invest in Senegal Forum concludes in Dakar with calls for sustainable investment in West Africa. Still ahead in the news, Nigerian government target 100 million children in a major vaccination drive against measles and polio. We do have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks. Only on West African Democracy Radio. Music continues.
Let me take you to Nigeria at the moment, where the country has embarked on one of its most extensive vaccination campaign, aiming to immunize more than 100 million children against measles, rubella, and polio. This large-scale initiative also seeks to bolster efforts to eradicate preventable childhood diseases throughout West Africa and even Central Africa. Backed by key partners such as the World Health Organization, UNICEF, Gavi, World Trade International, and the Africa CDC, the campaign marks a significant stride towards advancing universal health coverage across the region. WADR's Usman Woman report from Abuja.
The nationwide campaign launched in Abuja this week is a renewed push to protect children from preventable diseases. It targets children aged 0 to 14 for measles and rubella, and those under 5 for polio. Phase 1 of the rollout covers 20 high-risk northern states and Oyo in the southwest, while the second phase will begin in January 2026 to reach the remaining 15 states. Health workers will use fixed posts, outreach sites, and door-to-door visits to ensure no child is left behind. Alhagie Fatty is Nigeria's Minister of Health and Social Development.
The children that we vaccinate, the families that we reach, and the trust that we build in our country are what will help deliver the renewed hope promise to our fellow Nigerians and define the legacy, the health legacy of an entire generation.
The event drew government officials, international partners, community leaders, religious and traditional rulers, including the wife of the president, Oluremi Tinubu, all of whom pledged to support the campaign's success.
With this vaccine, our children will be protected against 2 deadly diseases and enjoy a lifetime of safety and protection.
The integrated campaign combines other essential child health services such as malaria prevention and treatment for neglected tropical diseases. It forms part of Nigeria's broader primary health care under one roof strategy and aligns with regional coordination efforts involving neighboring countries in the Lake Chad Basin. The cross-border initiative aims to end active outbreaks of poliovirus and measles by 2025 and eliminate residual risks by 2026. Health authorities say Nigeria's model, linking multiple health interventions under a single drive, offers a blueprint for other ECOWAS member states confronting similar health challenges. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
The Liberian government has moved to strengthen the drug enforcement agency with new vehicles to tackle ongoing drug trafficking issues. The 15 specially equipped patrol vehicles were handed over by President Joseph Boakai to the Liberian Drug Enforcement Agency on Tuesday. This development follows repeated calls by the agency, who have long highlighted the lack of logistical support as a major obstacle in addressing Liberia's growing role as a key transit point for illicit drugs. WADR's Abraham Parker reports in this package.
Liberia's strategic geographic position, combined with its porous borders and insufficient infrastructure, has turned it into a favored transit point for drug traffickers smuggling narcotics from South America and other regions to Europe and North America. During the handing over emphasized his administration's strong resolve to tackle drug trafficking and substance abuse as key priorities.
We look forward with you ahead, making sure that this institution works because it has a lot of bearing on the country's progress. The vehicles here are given to show you how much we respect who you are and how much we think about what you will use them to do.
Drug dealers have exploited Liberia's weak enforcement and corruption to traffic drugs, worsening addiction, crime, and public health issues. LDEA acting boss Fitzgerald Biako has made notable confiscations since his appointment, though challenges such as logistics remain.
The additional support we can provide additional support to our strategists already, but it's not new to us. We not just on logistics, but also intelligence, commitment, and discipline.
The newly acquired 15 vehicles should enable agents to respond more swiftly to intelligence reports, carry out patrols in remote regions, and efficiently track down drug traffickers. Nonetheless, numerous citizens have emphasized that improved logistical support alone cannot fully resolve the issue. For Newslink on WADR, April and Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis of major news, social matters, and more.
We are zooming in on Dakar, the bustling capital of opportunity, where the second edition of the Invest in Senegal Forum wrapped up today. The forum attracted a powerhouse lineup of global investors and decision makers, all eyeing Senegal's booming sectors, agro-industry, green energy, digital tech, and more. With Senegal fast emerging as a key player in sustainable development and innovation across West Africa, the big question is what's next for its economic future. To break it all down, we are joined by Professor Falusan, the chairman of the Africa Trade Policy Institute.
I guess that you can assess the impact of this by one quantitative element and then three qualitative elements. The quantitative element is the number of delegates. We have more than 10,000 delegates that have been registered, and more than 4,000 to 5,000 are investors and business people in various sectors. So the very impact of having value addition in terms of transportation, in terms of hotel, in terms of tourism, and in terms of all the expenditures that those people will do in Senegal is a value addition to the national economy. On the very issue of investment, I guess you can assess also the success against three elements. Number one, the Senegal is engaged not only in the Vision 2050, but also in a recovery plan that the Prime Minister has already presented, and also which is now undergone a large major coverage in Senegal and outside. So the main feature of this plan is to have undoubtedly funding from Senegalese here and from Senegalese abroad. That's why we have the diaspora bonds that the Prime Minister and the Ministers presented like 2 or 3 weeks ago in Italy, and that will also be launched. Number two, Senegal is part of ECOWAS region, and in ECOWAS we have a community investment code that we call ECOWIC, and this has to really make the full of its prospect, and we expect by this meeting we have the ECOWAS Commission here. We also have the Association for Investment Promotion Agencies that are also here, and they will be conducting a roundtable, special roundtable. And we think that in terms of the scale of economies, Senegal will also benefit from the impact in the overall West African region in ECOWAS. Number three is the overall African is also since 2023 adopted a protocol on investment through the AFCFT, the African Continental Free Trade Area. Its own rotation and objectives. This forum will give an opportunity for the AFCFTA to really communicate and appeal to the public in order to implement in an optimal way the protocol of investment.
How much increased investment in sectors like agro-industry and green energy influence Senegal's GDP growth?
Yeah, I mean, Sectorally, I mean, you have like five, less than, let's say, a dozen of sectors that are really at the core of the transformational agenda that we have in the economic plan. You have agribusiness, you have pharmaceutical, you have services, and namely the fintech and all the related ICTs. And you have also fishery, and you have mining, and you have oil and gas. You have infrastructure. So all of those have been planned in the very invitation and also in the very designing of the session and roundtables in a way to make sure that really after this we have a lot of pledge. And I guess that even before the conference we have like more than $6,000 pledge in terms of investment thanks to this program.
You did mention earlier that about 5,000 of the delegates are investors. That prompted me to ask, what role do international investors, for example, play in shaping Senegal's sectoral priorities and the economy as a whole?
Internal policy and external policy. Senegal is by tradition open country. Usually you have like the former colonizer France, but investment FDI from France have been taken over by China, and you have more and more FDI from Turkey, from all the BRICS countries, the emerging countries, and you have also investment from the Arab countries. So the Prime Minister just concluded a tour in the Arab countries. So really, we have a very diversified portfolio of investment that really would make sure that we are not tied to one country or to one sector, but we want to make sure that all partners are welcome and we'll try to make the best of it.
Professor Fallou Sam is the chairman of the African Trade Policy Institute. And in sports this evening, Augustine Colley joins me. Augustine, what's the latest?
Good evening, Chris. Yes, there are interesting results coming out of the FIFA World Cup African qualifying matches so far. Ethiopia caused a surprise at home win, 1-0 victory over Guinea-Bissau, jeopardizing the Jutos' hopes of qualifying from Group D matches for the FIFA World Cup 2026. Cameroon took a significant step towards qualification by beating Mauritius 2-0 in St. Pierre. Eswatini came close to victory in Mbambani before being caught by a determined Angolan side. The first half dominated by the Palancas Negras. Justice Fidrido capitalized on two defensive errors to give the home side a 2-goal lead. However, the draw sealed Angola's fate as they were now out of the running for the World Cup qualification. Cape Verde salvaged a valuable point in Benghazi after a spectacular 3-3 draw against Tinashe's Libyan side. I know you're also concerned about other results, so
yes.
Ghana defeated Central African Republic 5-0. Burkina Faso defeated Sierra Leone 1-0 in that match played in Monrovia. Mali defeated Chad 2-0. Like I said, Angola and Eswatini drew, and Egypt defeated Djibouti 3-0. And coming up tonight, Tanzania will face Zambia, Niger will face Congo so far, but tomorrow Kenya will face Burundi, Liberia will face Namibia, Guinea will play Mozambique, Algeria will face Somalia, Botswana will face Uganda, Malawi will play Equatorial Guinea, and on Friday there are Motocamp Gabon playing Gambia, Togo, and the DRC.
Yeah, we'll also see Nigeria being action against Lesotho as well.
Very well, very well.
But I guess I'm very happy.
Of course, and congratulations to the Ghanaian guys, the Black Stars.
That's nice. Thank you very much. I guess Nicole with the latest in the world of sports.
And that was the latest roundup on the sports segment on the DW West Africa Magazine, the latest news episode. The broadcast on King FM 94.7 with me, Alhagie Fatty. We remind that you are listening to the daily podcast live coming to you from King FM 94.7. And quickly before we go, the Gambia's Independent Electoral Commission (IEC) has announced that the country's presidential election will take place on December 5th, 2026. IEC Chairman Joseph Colley revealed the date during the launch of 2026-2027 election calendar in El Bichilo. National Assembly members' election are set for April 10, 2027, with councillors and mayoral polls scheduled for May and June respectively. A supplementary voters registration will run from 1st April to 14 May 2026. Colley urged political groups to meet registration requirements, reaffirming the IEC's commitment to transparency and legal compliance. And that is the latest from the Electoral Commission House in Banjul. And we remind that you are listening to the daily podcast live coming to you from our studios here. Now, crowd thrown rocks at President Daniel Nabout's convoy during nationwide protest over fuel stability in Ecuador. The videos capture tense moments as the security forces scrambled to secure the president's white vehicle in the motorcade were stopped and damaged as well. So, a lot of stuff. US President Donald Trump says that Israel and Hamas have agreed to first phase of the peace framework that will allow for the swift release of all hostages in Gaza. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for Arab and Muslim world. Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America, Trump said in a statement. While no official ceasefire has been declared, the announcement makes a significant step towards the releasing further detailing of the framework to have yet to be resolved. And we remind that you are listening to the daily podcast. President Adam Barrow has departed Banjul for his home village of Mankamankunda to begin his annual leave. The video credit here has been this. The President of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency President Adam Barrow, has departed State House to attend him, to go and stay in Mankamankunda for his holiday, has been, as we can see in the image, regarding to that as well. And still, as we said, those are the latest that we have for you on the social media outlets in the country. Let's check another roundup on the latest in the continents too, because of too much of. Let's go to Madagascar. Madagascar's President Andry has asked for 1 year to tackle the country's problems, vowing to resign if he fails. He urged his supporters to be honest rather than be praising him. I don't want frankly, I want to hear the truth. It is the people who kept telling me that everything was fine, who are responsible for our country situation. He said the youth movement, Z's media, which has been demanding his resignation, rejected his invitation to talk, accusing the government of repressing the youth and the people, announcing a new protest for Thursday. The protesters, which began on Thursday, 25th, over power and water shortages, have grown in wide demands over corruption, unemployment, and raising living costs in Madagascar. And still in our quest, Ensign, that is Ensign Voodoo. Ethiopia has accused Eritrea of preparing to wage war in alliance with Ethiopian Tragedy People's Liberation Front (TPLF), escalating tensions between the two neighbors over control of the Red Sea. In a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Ethiopia has warned that the alleged collusion had become more evident in recent months. Eritrea has not commented on the accusation. Relations between the countries will have a source as Ethiopia seeks renewed access to Red Sea, which Eritrea has control since gaining independence in 1993. The two nations last fought a deadly border war from 1998 to 2000. That was the latest in their side. And Be reminded that you are listening to the daily podcast live coming through from our studios at Talinding. And as always, this the story. So, 6 people detained by Israel force while delivering aid to Gaza and expected to be home today, as a report also indicate. For more on that, let's join DW on that podcast.
An international ship delivering aid to Gaza. They spent 5 days in the custody of Israeli forces. The mother of Humphrey Bolibole, a former Tanzanian diplomat, has appealed for police to help bring her son home. Anna Marie Bolibole is being quoted in media reports as saying that even if her son is no longer alive, she wants his body so she can bury him. Humphrey Bolibole is an ex-ambassador to Cuba and outspoken critic of the Tanzanian government. His family says he was abducted from his home in Dar es Salaam in the early hours of Monday.
And that is the latest in the one. So let's join ABC News for all the breaking news that you need to know about the globe as well. Because let's go with this one, because South Africa has one of the continent's biggest and most developed economies. For some 40 years, it was ruled by a white minority government when the National Party came to power in 1948 and imposed its policy of apartheid, which legally institutionalized previous existing racial aggregations. After decades of international isolation, opposition and mass protest, the discrimination laws began to be repealed from the latest 1980s onwards. The country held its first universal election in 1994. The democratically elected leaders encourage reconciliation and set about addressing social imbalance, but the economy structure has a struggle. In 2022, the World Economic Forum warned that South Africa's risk state collapse with a record unemployment level, high crime rate, unsustainable spending, mismanagement, institutions, and corruption has also been something else. Cyril Ramaphosa was sworn in for a second term as president in June 2024, even though his party, the African National Congress, ANC, failed to secure a majority in parliamentary in May 2024 election. ANC, which has governed since the end of the racist system of apartheid in 1994, lost its majority for the first time after election proceeded. No outright winner. ANC got 40% of the vote, a drop of 17% point, and it lost 70 seats in parliamentary. However, the ANC subsequently made a deal with its long-time rival Democratic Alliance DA, which came second with 22%, and three small parties to form a coalition government. The free market DA is ideologically at the odds with an ANC social welfare traditions and seen by many as catering to interests of a white minority, which is denied. But the two political opponents have agreed a common agenda of fixing the country's infrastructure, providing basic services such as water and power, and creating jobs. The coalition is a massive of the political center because of ANC's latter wing and police breakaway party rejected the invitation to join a national unity government. At this inauguration, President Ramaphosa told South Africans the coalition was committed to reserving inequality and growing the economy. But he also warned that unless it has addressed deep inequality, the country would become unable to sustain despite progress. Our society remains deeply unequal and high polarized, and added that there are toxic clemencies and inadequate social frameworks can also help us to grow as a better nation. And be reminded that you are listening to the daily podcast live coming to you from our studios Trending. My name is Alhagie Fatty, and this has been your daily podcast. Let's do our final roundup with ABC News regarding the latest in Gaza. Because of President Donald Trump announced Wednesday that both Israel and Hamas had signed off on the first phase of the peace plan in Gaza, following negotiation in Egypt, Red Sea city of Sharm el-Sheikh. The Israel's government is expected to ratify the idea at around 11 a.m. ET on Thursday, after which a ceasefire is expected to come into effect. Phase 1 of the deal will see the remaining hostage return from Gaza, a number of Palestine prisoners released from Israel jail, and the partial withdrawal of Israel Defense Force inside the strip. Trump said the agreement represents the first step towards a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. Intense and deadly Israel attacks on Gaza City, the largest urban area in the Gaza Strip, and elsewhere in the devastating Palestine territory continue in Thursday. So those are the latest regarding US President Donald Trump playing part in Mexico. At the end, there is peace in Gaza. And I'm afraid this is what we have for you for today, for this edition of your daily podcast, coming to you from King FM. My name is Alhagie Fatty. Till we come again tomorrow, God willing, have a peaceful day. Goodbye.